you please give us your name and your date of birth?
My name is, oh, you want my date of birth? I have to out myself and how old I am? Okay. My name is Viva Vinson, and my date of birth is April 24th, 1970. I grew up in Venice, and my mother's Dolores DeLuce, who was formerly known as Dolores Grosso, Dolores Smoots, Dolores Deluxe, Dolores DeLuce. Now she's Dolores DeLuce, and like most thespians, she's constantly changing her name and reinventing herself. And I'm her child, and I grew up in Venice with my mom. I was born in East Hollywood area, but since I can remember, I think as an infant, probably my first year, we moved to Venice. And we stayed here for a few years before we went to San Francisco. So I probably was like about one, I think, maybe, yeah, about 1 year old. I think my first memory in Venice was in the sandbox at preschool, kind of like fighting over some toys with another boy. That was kind of like my early memory of Venice, and kind of feeling the cool ocean breeze and just, yeah, being in the preschool and kind of feeling free and just playing in the sand and, and just, I think that's probably my earliest memory. It was kind of interesting. It was very communal, and, it's like, I always thought that it was the Venice experience, right? And maybe it's the only experience I had, but I also think maybe it's, growing up in the 70s, I would just remember knowing my neighbors and, and just kind of open door policy, just being able to kind of traipse ups and down my street and kind of knock on doors and play with kids and go to the beach unsupervised. And, like there was a lot of freedom. And I just remember it just being kind of like my block was my family or my community. And there was kind of like an open door policy. I mean, not with every neighbor, but pretty much, like, at least the kids on the block, I knew the kids on the block, and we played together and we got in trouble together. And there was just a real freedom there. I don't remember really being supervised that much or, or really needing to be. It was a different world, but it always felt like there was a community and there was always people around and there was always activities. We had like block parties for major holidays and, especially like Halloween and haunted houses, and everybody would go to each other's house and bob for apples and trick or treat. And, so it was kind of, it kind of felt like a commune, even though it wasn't. Technically, my block in Venice felt kind of like a commune, and that everybody kind of was together and kind of felt like I was being raised by everybody on my block. I guess, people have talked a lot about like maybe people in the South or in different communities, like they have that experience. But for, Venice felt like that for me. And then we had all my life, even in San Francisco, as well as Venice, we always had a rotating cast of characters coming through our house and a rotating cast of roommates. And, there's always people around, it was very lively and festive, and there was always people, and there was always art, and there was always creativity, and, something always was happening. I think part of the experience of living in Venice was that that Venice attracted kind of bohemian, artistic, creative, progressive individuals. Like it was kind of like that's what it attracted. And so in that community, a lot of people were like that. A lot of people were creatives and artists and activists and things of that nature. Because that's the people, like, because I know Venice is like very posh now and very desirable, but back then nobody wanted to live in Venice. You lived in Venice because you wanted cheap rent, right? And maybe you wanted the beach, but it wasn't like billion-dollar homes and like all this. It wasn't like that back then. Like it was kind of sketchy. Crazy people on the fringe, those are the people that were attracted to Venice. I think a lot of those people are still here, but then we now, because it's changed, we have the dot-commers and we have all those other people.
Do you remember some of the people who were really influential with you as a kid growing up that you remember really made an impact, like out of that Venice crowd that your mom was exposing you to?
Well, Donna Deitch made a big impact. Donna Deitch is a filmmaker, but I kind of knew her more as a visual artist, and then she became a filmmaker. She was our roommate for a while, and I really was inspired by her artistry and her creativity. And as I got older and she got older, I was really amazed, like that she kind of went into, directing and made films, and she made one of the early, films about lesbians, and like, she was very progressive, and so she had a big impact on me. Judy Baca had a big impact on me in the art community. We had a roommate for a long time named Cynthia Fitzpatrick, who was kind of like my gay auntie. She was a lesbian and an amazing visual artist as well as a musician. She made a big impact on me. And then my friend Willie Marquez was a creative and a writer, and he was like my uncle. So I had a lot of like gay aunties and uncles. My dad wasn't really in the picture a lot. He was kind of in and out. So, I had, just like I did in San Francisco, I had a community kind of not always gay, but largely gay, aunties and uncles who kind of helped raise me and helped my mom raise me and stuff like that. I think that definitely what shaped me, from my experience in Venice is just really being open and receptive. I feel like I can really have a conversation and relate to absolutely anybody. Like I can relate to somebody who's mentally ill on the street, who can barely speak, a sentence, like a grammatically correct sentence in English, to, erudite, well-traveled, billionaire people. I feel like I can relate to everybody, and accepting, and I'm interested, in people and what they have to say and where they've come from and stuff like that. And I think that flexibility and that open-mindedness, I think, has a lot to do with the way that I was raised in Venice. I wasn't protected from anything. You know what I mean? I wasn't protected from anything. So in a way, that's kind of helped me accept everything. I feel like there is a lot of magic in Venice, but a lot has left because it's unaffordable to live here anymore. Some people, like my mother, has rent control and she's lived here forever, right? And her rent's still affordable, but a lot of people have been forced out of their place, and the rents have gone through the roof, and it's changed the demographic. It's changed the community, and a lot of people who've lived here for 40, 50, 60 years have died off, and and their house has been sold or has been torn down, has been turned into something different, and there's it's changing. It's changing, and there is still that essence. It's still there, and I think the nucleus of it will always be there, but it's changing a lot. There are still people who really care about Venice, hence we're doing these oral histories, right? But so I hope its essence will be, retained to some extent. It will always be where I grew up, and it will always hold a special place in my heart. And like I said, maybe there'll be another cultural renaissance, and it will become what it was once again. Or it won't become what it was because we're constantly evolving, but it will become something new.